At the Big 12 Media Days, Coach Brown went on the offensive with the media, which is a bit of a surprise since he has usually gone out of his way to be as polite to the media as he can, regardless of what the media has said. But when they picked this year's West Virginia football team to finish dead last in the Big 12, Brown took exception, and he took it clearly. And one of the things that he said was this was partly caused by lazy reporting. And the media has not really been happy about that. And I think it's either because they don't know any better or they don't want to hear the truth. It's pretty much taken as a given in a lot of the discussion groups that most teams don't get much analysis when it comes to figuring out all of these placements. Because if you do it right, you'd have to spend at least a day, maybe two, analyzing each team. That means you're looking at almost a month's work just to do the Big 12, much less a whole passel of other teams. So you either have a whole lot of people doing the analysis and then trying to put opinions together when they haven't compared teams, or you have a smaller number of people working pretty much 6 months out of the year just to figure out how they think teams are going to finish in each conference for this year. Well, that's not going to happen. And they shouldn't spend that much time on it. It's not that important. And the truth is, the media has probably gotten more attention, which means more money, by putting WVU last than even if they had put them 13 instead of 14. Now, of course, they would have gotten a whole lot of talk if they had ranked West Virginia number 1. That wouldn't right now make any more sense than ranking them 14 out of 14. However, the media has not just owned up to it and said, hey, we're not lazy. We just don't have the time. We just don't think it's worth analyzing more than the top 2 or 3 or 4 teams. Of course, wouldn't be surprised if a close look revealed some serious issues with the analysis, even when they take more time. There's this tendency to look at numbers, superficial numbers in superficial ways, and not do a whole lot of thinking. But rather than leave it be, one particular CBS sports writer, Shehan Jayaraja, went to Twitter to do what he thought was proof of not being lazy. And he said that Coach Brown declined to start the better QB who completed 55% of his passes, lost top 4 receivers, totally depended on transfers to fix a terrible defense, and were still 1-5 in Power 5 games when Donaldson played. Well, that proves lazy reporting. That's some of the laziest reporting you're likely to see. Declined to start the better QB. Of course, that's lazy writing. I'm assuming he's suggesting that Green should have started from the beginning of the season, which is a pretty bizarre assumption if you haven't analyzed the team and I suspect it's an ignorant assumption if you have analyzed the team, based on Garrett Green's trajectory since he got to WVU, he wasn't ready. He did make too many mistakes, and quite often the same mistake. When he did take over the team, he was at the point where his positives outweighed the negatives just enough to win 2 out of 3 games. But those negatives were still quite apparent. Now, luckily in the spring game, it looked like he had cleared up all of his major problems. He looked dang good. Now, if you looked at Green in the spring game and said, hey, he should start, I understand that. But claiming, for unknown reasons, that he should have started, and the fact that he didn't start last year is a reason for lowering the team this year, I don't know if I'd call it lazy so much as just plain illogical. Lost top 4 receivers. Yes, that's a statistic. That's a fact. Well, you know what? Facts sit there. They're static. They don't do anything, and most of the time they don't prove anything when they are by themselves. They need to be in combination with facts, built into a shape, and they need the catalyst of thought applied to them. The saying numbers don't lie is a lie. Anybody who pays any attention knows that you can play lots of games with numbers, and you can hide a lot of things with numbers, misdirect with numbers. Lost top 4 receivers, yep. But if you look, those 4 receivers weren't all that impressive. Expectations were high, and the ceiling, their best plays were impressive. But they didn't make those best plays all that often. And when it came down to making the basic plays, doing the basic things well every time, they weren't very good. James and Bryce Ford Wheaton had both talked about it. They talked about it last year. They talked about it the year before. They knew they had to be more consistent. And they worked at it. And maybe they were a little more consistent, but they were not consistent enough. Prather pretty much quit halfway through the season. It looks to me like it was an attitude problem. And Reese Smith got very little use. Why? Not sure. Obviously, he didn't like it and he went elsewhere. Well, it made sense for him. But losing those 4 receivers is not that big a deal. I'm glad they're gone. It opens up possibilities. I think maybe we stuck with them too long with the expectation that they were going to make the better plays more often. They always had that ability. When they came through big. But I'm glad they've moved on. I wish them well. But we've got guys who were all here last year and guys that they've brought in this year that are going to make the passing game and the running game better. Cortez Braham has good hands. Now he's in his 2nd year in the program. and looks like he has good chemistry with Green. Jeremiah Aaron. People don't talk about the fact that he was an ESPN top 40 coming out of junior college. He's recognized as having talent. He's in his second year. And he looks like he has chemistry with Green. We've got Devin Carter. He did not shine at NC State. Seems to have been a lot like Ford Wheaton. But he also has, he's shown those same signs. Maybe he steps up at WVU. Fresh start, fresh perspective. The possibility is there. You shouldn't just ignore possibilities. We have Massey, this massive slot receiver of all things. We have Polk and Horton for speed. We have 10 or 11 receivers, not counting tight ends. We have a range of size. We have a range of speed. Can do things that we couldn't do before because we didn't have the right receivers. There are going to be a lot of mismatches set up. And let's not forget Cole Taylor. Part of the reason he was brought in was his receiving ability. And he has shown that ability. The guy has hands. And he knows what to do with them. He makes catches that make the highlight reels. So we lost 4 receivers. Okay. But what did we lose out of those receivers? And don't just quote me yards. The yards weren't nearly enough. Yards after catch weren't very good. Give me analysis. Tell me about the dropped passes. Tell me about the pass that went through Ford Wheaton's hand in the Pitt game because he looked away. Made the most basic of all receiving errors. In his 5th year of playing? That's not supposed to happen. Tell me about the people coming in to replace them. And don't just tell me they haven't played much. Look and analyze. If you don't do that, okay, just say so. Say we don't have time. Otherwise, you're going to get called lazy because it's a bad job. Totally dependent on transfers to fix a terrible defense. No. The transfers are going to be critical. Transfers also look to be pretty dang good. And if you're bringing in the right transfers to fix a terrible defense, then being dependent on them isn't a problem. So don't just say totally dependent on these transfers. Analyze the transfers. And while you're doing so, look at the rest of the defense to find out that that totally dependent part is such bull crap that writing it just says you're not really qualified to write on this subject. It is so wrong as to be absurd. There are a number of young, talented guys coming back. There's Jacoby Spells, a guy named Aubrey Burks, Wilson Lamp, Malachi Ruffin. There are good players who have worked up through the ranks from high school. They aren't just transfers, as if transfer was a dirty word. So you're wrong when you say totally dependent, and you're lazy when you don't look at the transfers or what's there around the transfers. Okay, we're 1-5 in P5 games when Donaldson played. Well, big friggin' deal. Coach Brown mentioned Donaldson as a budding superstar. He didn't say Donaldson was going to have to carry the team. He could have mentioned Milam, Remick, Frazier, Nestor, improvements from Yates and Hubbard, a guy named Jalen Anderson, Justin Johnson, Jaheim White, and even DJ Oliver. Hasn't been on campus very long, but oh man, what he looks like he might be able to do. Garrett Green. He's always been dangerous. Now he's finally learned to be patient. He could be quite a quarterback if you have looked at his growth. His growth mentally, and by the way, also his growth physically. He has built that body of his into something pretty darn solid. On defense, Coach has before talked about Sean Martin, Lee Koba, Aubrey Burks. Just a solid, star at each level. There are others, but you pick those three just to represent. So, we lost when Donaldson was playing. Yeah, okay. There are other factors that have improved this season. And in all likelihood, Donaldson has improved this season. Last year was his first year at running back. And his body wasn't even ready. That's why they had to limit how many carries he had. And it's also part of why he got injured twice. Well, they've worked on that. This is not last year. Analysis means looking not just at what was, but also at the movement, the changes. That terrible defense. Well, guess what? The coaches have talked extensively about the fact that the defense was bad. Why the defense was bad, which is more than one reason. There were various problems, although they came all out of a couple of particular issues. And they have talked about what they have done to fix the problems. And if you look at the last 3 or 4 games of 2022, you see the change. You should already realize things like tackles for loss shot up in those last few games. You should notice that the defense was playing fast, free, and aggressive. There were still mistakes. But there was a clear reason to expect them to be better this year. And when coaches demonstrate an understanding of what the problem is and demonstrate just what they have done to fix it, you need to know that, and you need to look at what they've suggested as the problem and the fix, and think about whether or not it's going to work, and what that's going to mean for the team. Now, if you don't want to take the time to do that, I understand. Media has more to do than just rank the teams in the Big 12. I'm frequently not impressed by how they do it, but they have more to do. But don't pretend that you did a thorough job, a job that was not lazy, a job that was lazy for a reason. I can accept lazy for a reason. But don't try, when you make lazy claims, what you reveal is that you do not understand. When the media quotes numbers, and we've seen that lost top 4 receivers time after time after time after time after time. And I don't think once have I seen an analysis of exactly what we lost, what we didn't lose, and what we've got. I see a lot of assumptions. I see media people and fans who say, we haven't seen this proven on the field extensively, therefore I'm going to assume they're no good. That is lazy. That is failure to think. Well, I believe that the media should think. I'm funny that way. I believe in thinking. I believe thinking is fun. I believe it's beneficial. And I don't believe that you can do proper analysis without it. But it seems that the media believes they can. They think quoting some numbers is enough. It's not. It's lazy. Coach Brown was right. And I'm glad that he's in the mood to say so. He is obviously pretty well fed up. He knows everything is on the line. And he has tried to be the nice guy with the media. He may or may not yell at his players when we're not looking. But he does what he can to be polite to the media. Well, gloves are off. And he's cutting loose just a little bit. I don't think he's ready to start swearing at the media when we're listening. But I think we are going to see some changes. I hope that when things are going better and the media is being nice, this new attitude stays around. Just one that's a little freer, a little more open, a little more relaxed, and let things come out. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, click the thumbs up, comment, all those things. And I'm saying that to the approximately 30% of people who watch videos to the end. I thank you especially. And I hope to see all of you and some more for my next video. And that one will be Coach Brown the play caller. I know you have opinions about that. See you then.